Hi everyone, welcome back to Pages of the Globe. Today I'm going to be reading to you the short story Dr. Chevalier's Lie by Kate Chopin. Now, this is a quite interesting story that, like always of Kate Chopin's stories, kind of reflects this kind of society and how we are always trying to confine to society's roles that are meant for us. In the story, we follow a doctor, Dr. Chevalier, who is called for a woman who has just died and he has to kind of set things right for her. And when he arrives there, he realizes that he knows this young woman and that he spent a year personally with her and her family, and he knows that her family was so proud of their daughter for going to New York City by herself and just being able to kind of start a life for herself out there. So obviously, when Dr. Chevalier realizes that not only does he know this young woman and her parents, but he also knows that she actually killed herself, he's immediately he's in this mental conflict because he doesn't want to tell her parents that your daughter, who you were so proud of, has killed herself, but he also wanted to tell them the truth. But in the end, he ends up making his decision, whatever it is. Because I don't want to spoil the story, so I'm not going to tell you. But this story is quite interesting because Kate Chopin, the author, describes how this young woman was often described as having disrepute and how a lot of people kind of thought of her as someone who dated around. And so when he decides to send out the letters to her parents and kind of take care of that young woman, because no one else wants to, since everyone who knew her thought of her to be disreputable. A lot of people are like, oh my god, maybe he was one of the people that she was with for a time being. So obviously society is like, should we cut him? But a lot of people would decide not to, even though they did shun her immediately. Now, this itself is a really big problem, and this is a very common theme in many short stories. But the way Kate Chopin writes this entire part of a story, which is such a big theme of the story, in like 2 sentences is crazy, because she's mentioning something that's so huge in like almost a non-committal phrase, and almost in a way as if showing, oh yeah, this guy was not taken out from society, even though a lot of people thought that he had been with this woman, but a woman who was with more than one guy was immediately shunned from society. And so immediately the story that at first just seemed like a normal story has a lot of depth, which is one of the things that I really like about Kate Chopin's stories. Now, I have read Kate Chopin stories before, so if you would like to find out more about her, and if you would like to find out about the different stories she has read, then you can read the story or listen to the story that I recorded, The Story of an Hour by Kate Chopin, which is quite popular. Now, without further ado, let's get on to the story. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below what short story you would like to hear next. Dr. Chevalier's Lie by Kate Chopin. The quick report of a pistol rang through the quiet autumn night. It was no unusual sound in the unsavory quarter where Dr. Chevalier had his office. Screams commonly went with it. This time there had been none. Midnight had already rung in the old cathedral tower. The doctor closed the book over which he had lingered so late and awaited the summons that was almost sure to come. As he entered the house to which he had been called, he could not but note the ghastly sameness of detail that accompanied these oft-recurring events. The same scurrying, the same groups of tawdry, frightened women bending over banisters, hysterical some of them, morbidly curious others, and not a few shedding womanly tears, with a dead girl stretched somewhere as this one was. And yet it was not the same. Certainly she was dead. There was the hole in the temple where she had sent the bullet through. Yet it was different. Other such faces had been unfamiliar to him, except so far as they bore the common stamp of death. This one was not. Like a flash he saw it again amid other surroundings. This time it was a little more than a year ago. The place, a homely cabin down in Arkansas, in which he and a friend had found shelter and hospitality during a hunting expedition. There were others beside, a little sister or two, a father and mother, coarse and bent with toil, but proud as archangels of their handsome girl, who was too clever to stay in an Arkansas cabin and who was going away to seek her fortune in the big city. "The girl is dead," said Dr. Chevalier. "I knew her well, and charged myself with her remains and decent burial." The following day he wrote a letter, one doubtless to carry sorrow, but no shame to the cabin down there in the forest. It told that the girl had sickened and died. A lock of her hair was sent, and other trifles with it. Tender last words were even invented. Of course, it was noised about that Dr. Chevalier, who had cared for the remains of a woman of doubtful repute. Shoulders were shrugged. Society thought of cutting him. Society did not, for some reason or the other, so the affair blew over. The end.